Alrighty, good afternoon. We'll call to order our regular IVDA meeting, and before doing so, we're gonna go into closed session, but just in case if anybody wants to comment, other than the two interns and Mr. Magnus, I don't see any other public speakers, so we're gonna go ahead and recess into closed session, but since everybody's here, let's go ahead and do a roll call real quick, make sure we're all clear.
Certainly. Please state your name for the record from the city of Colton.
Frank Navarro.
Isaac Sucho.
Thank you. From the city of Loma Linda.
Dusty Rigsby.
And Ovi Popescu.
Thank you. From the county of San Bernardino, 4th District.
Kurt Hagman.
And 1st District. Actually, he's not here, absent. And then from the city of San Bernardino.
Councilmember Bessie Richard.
Councilmember Sandra Ibarra.
Theodore Sanchez.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and close session. Thank you.
No, we do not have any reportable action. I would just note for the record that there were no discussions on item 40 of the agenda.
Thank you. With that, we'll go ahead and stand and do our pledge of allegiance, and I'll ask Mayor Frank Navarro to lead us in that, please. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any items to be added or deleted?
No, sir. I would just ask the chair to consider after the election of vice chair, if you consider possibly having Mr. Magnus his presentation following that.
Because is anybody here from Eddie and Payne or?
So we're still waiting, and now the Eddie and Payne
Is here. Okay, that's fine.
So,
But
yeah,
we'll change the order. Sounds good.
if you don't mind.
Perfect.
I want him to hear it.
Very good. All right. So I guess we'll move on to any conflicts of interest disclosures. All right. Very good. And we'll move on to informational items. Mr. Burrow.
So I do have a few. I'd like to start with item B, if you don't mind. There is an attachment with in your packet, actually. So if you look at page 29 of your agenda, your actual posted agenda, as you know, every year we track our total assessed valuation, and as part of that, we actually have to report out for bond disclosure how the assessed values are doing. So if you recall, the IVDA has a base reuse project area, sphere of influence, about 3 miles in radius surrounding the former base. And last year about this time, we had hit a milestone. So for the first time ever, we had over $6.9 billion with a B in total assessed valuation. This year, we've just completed the update to that, and our finance team is working with our bond dissemination agent. We came in at over 7.6 billion. So that's a 10.2% increase. So the development y'all are seeing and incentivizing is still continuing, thank goodness. And that was actually a bit of a surprise. I knew we'd have an increase, but that actually shocked me. So hats off to you all, and thank you for your support to continue to create jobs and investment for the community. If there's not any questions there, I'd like to then move on to item C. So I'd like to actually do a brief introduction. So we are working hand in hand with San Bernardino City Unified Schools and with the County of San Bernardino in Generation Go, and are very, very pleased to have two incredibly bright young people join our team as interns. So I'd like to bring up Mr. Brandon Prado and Lizette Acosta, and they're going to say a few words of introduction to y'all. These folks are coming to us from San Gorgonio High School down the road and have been great additions to our team. So if you guys would, say a few words.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Prado, and I'm from San Gorgonio High School. I'm very glad and excited to be here. And first, I've actually been very productive and surprising because I didn't know that, especially in operations that I'm doing right now, they do a lot more than I had assumed at first. But like I mentioned, I'm very excited to be here. I'm glad to be here, and it was nice meeting you.
Hello, my name is Lucetta Costa. I am also from San Antonio. I'm a senior. So far, like working with the airport's like interesting. Like there's certain parts that I didn't know there was to an airport, and I'm just like happy I actually got this internship. Other than one that I would be like I wouldn't know a lot about, and it's very interesting. So thanks for having me.
So we are actually, you've certainly heard about career pathways and some of the strides we're making in those arenas. This is something that Dr. Marsden and I kind of bounced around last year as a concept. And what we are trying to set up is an airport track for their existing logistic pathway. So these great folks get a tour of duty in all aspects of the airport, including this entity with the economic development mission. They're going to spend time with San Bernardino County Fire, the ARC Training Center, San Bernardino County Sheriff, and a couple of our tenants too. So we're really excited, and I'm excited to see what you guys think. So thank you for doing it. So last but not least, I'd like Ms. Ferris to make a few comments in there. In your packet, we're also making a plea to save a few bucks and get your agendas out to you faster. So Jen, if you wouldn't mind,
Sure.
take it away.
So as you noticed in my report, it has been a past practice of the agency to hand deliver agenda packages to each member entity in the past. And due to unnecessary costs and inefficient staff time, we propose and intend to stop agenda deliveries altogether. This would save the agency an estimated $3,500 to $4,000 annually due to expenses printing, such as toner, per page printing costs, printer repair costs, courier costs, labels, paper, etc. As usual, the agenda package will be made available online on our website, www.ivdajpa.org, and copies are available in the back of the meeting room as well. And if any board member would like an iPad assigned to them individually to access your packets electronically, I can go ahead and assign one. Just come on up to me and request that so I can get that for you. Thank you.
And for those that may not have noticed, I will be doing that with you. So I've got to crawl into the century. So, thank you.
All right.
So if that's acceptable to the board, your next IVDA agenda would be under the new format.
I don't think Jesse's going to be happy. He hates Apple with a passion, so.
I have a ton of iPads. I don't need another one.
Okay.
Well, until you get an iPhone, what you have at home doesn't count. Anyway,
my report.
I was going to have a couple of our new members introduce themselves. However, one of them is not here right now, so we'll just wait until the end of the meeting. And it sounds like we have quite a few of our staff people are not around.
Yeah,
so.
unfortunately, Mr. Gray is with his wife at a medical appointment, and as you all may have heard, Ms. Pritchett underwent surgery, planned surgery, and she's doing quite well.
Okay, very good. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and move on to regular action items. And first item on our list is to conduct an election for the vice chair for our agency. Since we are a public entity, and
sorry to the chair, we've got the consent calendar.
Move the consent item.
I'll sorry.
Second.
Thank you. All right. Any opposed? Any pulled items?
Abstain from item 5.
All right. Let the record show that Mr. Hagman's abstaining to number 5. Having seen no opposition, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to board action. Since we are a public entity and sometimes our membership changes based on the recent elections, there was a vacancy that was created in the position of vice chair. So we're going to go ahead and conduct that election at this time. So with that, I'll just get straight to it, and I'll entertain any nominations for this position?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Isaac Sucho for
Second.
chair of vice chair.
Okay, so I have a nomination for Mr. Sucho. Is there anybody,
Second.
any other? Thank you, and with a second for Mr. Rigby. Any other nominations? All righty, so there's no competition. That's an easy election. All right, seeing no opposition, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Which is not the way you conducted, but it'll go. So thank you very much. Welcome. If you want to do a speech, you're welcome. Otherwise, very good.
Does,
But
does he get to trade seats with his mayor?
no, he's fine.
He needs to be closer to the middle.
Frank is there just temporarily
Temporarily,
until,
yeah.
so there's no trading of seats at this point. But thank you. No, we do want to welcome you on board. Colton is a vital member of our organization, and we've always tried to involve more than one entity within some of the various executive staff positions, and it's wonderful to have Colton on board. So thank you for joining us. We look forward to working with you on some of the other committees. With that, we'll move on to, I'm going to switch it around, and we're going to go to item number 8, which is consider and discuss a report by Alliance California on its development activities. And I think Mr. Burrows is going to then eventually introduce Mr. Magna.
Well, being the efficient gentleman that he is, I think he's ready to go. So welcome, John.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to address you. I think once a year, the IVDA asked me to come, specifically Mike asked me to come and update you on our project. And so I'm going to take you back just because I've been doing this every year for 17 years, 18 years. This will be my 18th year doing it. But I think since we've had such a big board turnover, I'm going to go back a little bit further and kind of walk through the genesis of this project and introduce myself and our company for those who may not know me or Hillwood, if that helps. I hope I'm pushing the right button. There we go. So if you all have been around here as long as I have, and many have been here even before me, Alliance California is the redevelopment of the Norton Air Force Base. My name is John Magnus, and I'm the West Coast market leader for Hillwood. When I moved out here in 2001 from Texas, I had one project under my control and guidance, and today I have 9, 8 of which are here in the Inland Empire. So I have a lot of responsibility to make sure that this goes right and wrong. The good news is that I've been here since the project started, and I'm not going anywhere. And the other good news is that Mike Burrows has been here since the beginning. When I started, when I made my first trip here to San Bernardino, Mike was an intern, I believe, then, and now he's in charge. So this has been a great friendship and relationship that has morphed over the years. Our company saw something here in 1999 when I made my first trip here. I commuted here for 2 years from Texas and then decided it was easier if I moved my family out. And that occurred on May of 2001. The idea behind this project called Alliance California, and it's an alliance because it is a partnership. It is a joint venture, if you will, between several cities, the county, the federal government, and a private developer. That the word alliance we don't throw around loosely, and we put that brand on very specific projects across the country. The first of which was Alliance Texas, which was a greenfield, meaning from farm field built airport that we built in 18 months in order to meet the demands of aviation around the Fort Worth and Dallas Metroplex. We didn't quite know what we were getting into. We owned the land, and we tried to figure out what would you put around an airport. And in 1988, we thought defense industries would be the right answer to that. Well, after peace broke out and the wall came down, we all were looking at an airport with no defense contractors and said, well, what do we do now? I could tell you some funny stories that have been passed on to me about wild animal park ideas, um, you know, buffalo, giraffes, things like that out there that really don't make money and don't create jobs. But we stumbled into this idea of logistics and leveraging the location of the airport, the crossroads of freeways, 2 rail lines, a foreign trade zone, and a great density of employment. And when we put all that together, the project really took off, literally. The airport started blossoming. And to an extent, it was still limited to some defense, but also to Federal Express or FedEx, who decided to put an air hub there. The airport kind of bumped around for several years, but when we reached a critical mass of about 20 million square feet of industrial base around this airport, more interesting things started. We started to get intermodal rail service to the airport. We started to get office use, hotels, multifamily, and other things. It reached a critical mass such that there was no turning back. We had found what the right recipe for the project, and in 1998, Intel announced that they were going to put a chip fab plant there. So we said, this has got to be the greatest thing in the world, until they stopped construction and moved out of Texas. So things can go right and some things can go wrong. But I learned from that on how to create the right recipe for a long-standing project that I was fortunate enough to move out here to start. So if you look back in the history of Norton Air Force Base, it had a long history since 1942 when the airport was built out of strawberry fields, and had a great run in service to our country and to the community. There were, at its peak, about 10,000 jobs here. They were well-paying jobs. They were centered around defense and military and government spending, not too much private enterprise, although there were some defense contractors down Mill Street that did service the base and did service the Air Force that was here. But in 1988, when peace broke out and we were scratching our heads in Texas, the government decided that Norton should close. And I know it was a shock to your community, as it was a shock to many other communities around the country. You all figured it out a little bit quicker than most. Some are still trying to figure it out. But from 1988 to 1994, you all bumped along like we did in Texas, trying to figure out what to do, mostly because you were trying to reuse the old facilities. When we showed up in 1999, we came up with a plan, working with the IVDA and several key members of the IVDA consultants, specifically Bill Leonard, Don Rogers, and Tim Sabo. We presented an idea to them to tear everything down. It was a little unique. We got some resistance at first, and many people thought that we were here just as one city attorney said, you were here to steal our land and run back to Texas. Well, 18 years later, I'm still here. The land is still here, and you all are the recipients of about 11,000 new jobs that weren't here before we got here. So it's been a collaborative effort between our company and the city, the county, the surrounding cities, and the IVDA. And in 2002, we signed a series of agreements that gave us, you all enabled us to have a 29-year run at redeveloping this. We set the bar fairly low because nothing had happened since 1988. And the bar was, we want you to knock down at least 1 million square feet. And there's 4 million square feet of old buildings here. We want you to bring at least, I believe it was 1,000 jobs, and we want you to build 1 million new square feet of product here. We did that in the first year. So we think we set the bar low enough that we could exceed expectations, but then the IVDA and the city said, well, what's next? So we tried to stay ahead of the trends and try to stay ahead of the market, and we're fairly successful in doing that. And we think we found the right formula to keep this project long-standing. We've never had a tenant move out. And if you look at the turnover of warehouses in the Inland Empire, they're always turning over. There are always new tenants moving in. and we continue to expand and keep these tenants here. So in 2002, Hillwood was named as the master developer, and it gave us a 29-year runway, if you will, to get things going. But some hurdles and benchmarks along the way that we had to meet, and we still report to the IVDA when we meet those benchmarks. There we go. So if you remember what it looked like, it was a series of World War II warehouses, some 1960s office buildings, a parade ground, old infrastructure, and contamination, asbestos, lead-based paint, and a lot of contaminants in the soil. And the base basically had 3 gates. They had a west gate, a south gate, and a north gate to get into the project. So when we began to figure out how were we going to create something here, one rule that we were given by the city at the time and the county was, please don't make this an island unto itself. It needs to blend in with the rest of the community. If you create a new project and don't take care of what's just outside the fence, it won't be successful. So we tried to do that, and you'll see how we've expanded beyond the boundaries of the old base. So the master plan today looks fairly similar to the very, very first master plan that we came up with in 2000. It stretched all the way from City Creek, all the way down by the old Waterman Golf Course, all the way up to 3rd Street, and then all the way out across the wash and into Highland. And we said we wanted to redevelop the entire thing. So the base is 2,000 acres. It's 4,000 acres if you include everything within those boundaries. Of course, there were some pockets that we didn't own, a lot of land that we didn't own, and there was a lot of residents who didn't want to move and didn't want to be next to warehouses. So we had to buy land where we could and tear down the old and try to build the new. So the green outline is the outline of the former base. The blue squares that you see on there are buildings that we've built off the base. So we very slowly started to buy houses, vacant lots, and try to create a master plan community in about 4,000 acres as opposed to just staying on the footprint of the old base. We think this is the right approach. I think it's given us some ability to bring in tenants when perhaps the base property is not ready or hasn't been ready, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And then it also gave us access to critical nodes of transportation infrastructure in and around. So I mentioned that the Alliance Texas project, where I started my real estate career, had 2 freeways, it had 2 rail lines, and an airport. We all started with an airport, 2 rail lines, 3 freeways, and an intermodal yard that we didn't have to build that was already there. So that's what we tried to bring together here, to pattern this off of the success of Alliance Texas, and it's been wildly successful by any measure. So the original board in IVDA back in 2002, guided by Tim Sabo, Bill Leonard, Mike Burrows, and Don Rogers, said, we want you to do 3 things, 3 goals. Change the landscape. You said you're going to tear it down, Hillwood, so tear it down. We want you to increase the tax base. If you remember, the base is not on the tax rolls. So every time we buy a parcel of land, we put it on the tax rolls. The IVDA used to be the beneficiary of that. The city and the county now are more the beneficiary of that since the death of redevelopment agencies. But increasing the tax base is an important metric, as Mike mentioned, that has continued to skyrocket here as property values continue to increase in and around the base. The last was, I thought, the most important, and that's bring jobs back. Because if we're not doing that, you should fire us, because we think that that's the most important metric by a community standard, by a voter standard. If there are not jobs here, then why do you have a master developer working on your very important asset in your community? So let's look through the goals real quick. Goal number 1, demolish the buildings. There were 4.2 million square feet here of 1940s era buildings, and they're just about all down. We've got a couple. One, the bank building needs to come down. The gym needs to come down, and a couple of the others that are still here. We 2 years ago, tore down the last warehouses that were here, the last 3, and we've abated and cleaned that up and built 2 state-of-the-art facilities there. In terms of new buildings, we're up to about 15.2 million square feet, and we have another 1.6 planned. We'll break ground next week on a facility built to suit for a Fortune 50 company that we'll mention here probably in the next. We'll announce in the next couple of weeks. We should sign the lease at the end of this week, and that will be just off the base, across the street on vacant land that has been vacant since the base closed, essentially. So we've got some big things coming, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So that was change the landscape, increase the tax base. To politicians, I can imagine this is also important, making sure the tax base continues to grow. But if you look here, because is there county assessor in here, Mike? I hope not. I try to sandbag the numbers a little bit. I don't want the county assessor to say, "Hey, you said that's an $80 million building when it's or that's a $20 million building." So I've sandbagged a little bit here because I just don't want to be caught in that trap. But let's take a look at the Amazon building just for a second. The very first one we built was the very first one in California. Amazon chose San Bernardino to be the very first building that they would build in California, and they came here and they said that we want you to build us a building that we could put our bookshelves in to ship, books and CDs. And a funny thing happened on the way to that business model. They started shipping lawnmowers and jewelry and food. And this facility is their most important in Southern California. I put $80 million there. It's worth a lot more than that. And the insides of the building is probably worth 2 or 3 times that. It's a state-of-the-art facility. You can take a tour of it. If you haven't taken a tour of it, I'd highly recommend it. That we have 3 of those here in the city. 3 of those buildings. Some are bigger, some are smaller. Some ship things bigger than a tote. Some ship things that are inside of totes. And we've got all those here represented in the city. A big shot of adrenaline and a shot of steroids for us was the Stater Brothers deal. Just to show you how this partnership worked, when Jack Brown approached Mike and myself, or Don Rogers and myself, and said, "I want to put my headquarters here," he really didn't care that Hillwood had a 29-year agreement to redevelop this. He said, "Please get out of my way," and we said, "Yes, sir." So we basically sold him our rights to that land so he could build that. He then proceeded to show me a newspaper article from 1996 where he said this is where he wanted to put his headquarters. So he claimed to have had this idea before I did, but I used to argue with him that we came up with it first. But it didn't matter. Having him here is a blessing to the community. You kept a very big company and put their headquarters here, and it blended in very well with the rest of the development. The rest of the companies, the latest one is a really neat company, Pacific Mountain Logistics. It's in a small building. So we started with big buildings, and we're now on to some smaller buildings. Pacific Mountain Logistics is run by a gentleman who used to live out of the county, moved into the county, bought a house in Yucaipa, and he's the CEO of an up-and-coming company that's growing every day. And they do a lot of logistics for grocery stores. As you know, grocery stores sell more than food now. So somebody's got to put, when you go up on the top of the refrigerator or the freezer section, and you see kayaks and bicycles and stuff like that. Well, who's going to warehouse those for them? This is what he does, and he does a great job of it. And that building was occupied late last year, so we're adding companies all the time. So we're up to almost $1 billion of just in tax base increase directly from our investment and a large chunk by Jack Brown and Stater Brothers. The last metric was bring jobs back. I know this is important to you because, again, it's the best measure of are we successful or not. If you've been by the Amazon facilities down Central Avenue around their peak season, October to December, that number about doubles from 2,500 to 5,000. I know Ovi and I have had this discussion when people from out of town start bringing RVs to come work there, and because they need employees. People from Canada will drive down. Well, probably not Canada. Okay, North Dakota will drive down to work in those facilities. They get sunshine during the winter. They'll park their RVs somewhere in the area, adding money to our economy, and they'll come there because they love the extra pay before Christmas, and they'll love to come to the sunshine down here in California. And they physically can't find enough employees in the area during the holidays. Permanent jobs are over 2,000 now, and that's just in that one building. Again, we'll try to get you a tour if you haven't seen it. Another recent addition last year was Trader Joe's. They needed a freezer cooler facility to stock their stores in the area, and we had built a building speculatively for ourselves that we were going to put a tenant in, and Trader Joe's says you have to sell us the building, and we said it's not for sale, and then they told us how much they're investing in it. We met with the city and the IVDA and said this is an important transaction for you all, and we ended up selling the building to Trader Joe's at the right price too. So I wasn't a giveaway, but it was an important transaction to get them here for the community. And so there's the list. We broke 10,000 jobs last year if you include the construction jobs. So on any given day here in San Bernardino, we're probably employing 300 or 400 people in different construction trades, and it ebbs and flows. We've got steel erectors here almost for 6 months every time we put up a building. The concrete companies that are here. Think of the trades. We put air conditioning in a lot of these warehouses. On all the Amazon facilities, you have air conditioning. Those air conditioning HVAC workers are here for almost 9 months, trying to get those things up and running. So these trades tend to come here and stay here, and then we find new buildings to build and then roll them over to the next project. So that's kind of a look at the of the 3 goals and how we've done. We then like to look at how much private investment has been here, has come here. So the deals that we've put together just in the buildings, about $680 million of Hillwood money. Dater Brothers, and they said it's okay to use this number. It's probably low, but $250 million for their corporate campus there. Remember, we've gone out and bought land outside of the airport, about 417 acres, and include that in our investment. We bought 2 buildings that another developer built and basically left and sold during the recession. We bought those from them and immediately put tenants in there. Nothing sadder than an empty building. But we bought those and put those back into production. Those are up on 6th and 9th Street, north of the base. We've spent about $40 million in infrastructure. And I think that's important because every time we build a building and there's no infrastructure there, there's no storm drain, there's no sewer, there's no water in different parts of the project area, we have to install that in order to get the entitlements to build. And then we call it our other bucket. We have a lot of pursuit-related costs in trying to attract these tenants and keep them here. So over $1 billion of private investment. We like to put that up, and Mike and I were with the FAA Monday, and we told them, that $1 billion of private investment, that's not even touching the airport, right? And then you couple that with, the $100 million or plus that have gone into here over the years. That's a great return on investment that you've been able to attract. What type of economic impact? The airport and the property is in the city of San Bernardino, so we pay our fees to the city of San Bernardino. So almost $26 million just of standard building fees. Over $9 million to the schools in school fees, and then if you put it through the RIMS 2 model, it's about a 2.5 multiple. It takes us over $2.6 billion of direct economic impact. So what's upcoming? We have a project on Waterman. You might have seen it. That's a new industrial facility there. We're very, very close on signing another tenant. I say very close. Inside of 30 days, we're starting to negotiate. It's a medical supplier. If you know, Medline has been here for years, and this is one of their competitors. So I'm looking forward to hopefully bringing that one. We don't talk about the names of the companies until they're real deals because it always seems to jinx them, and then I get criticized in the papers. But this is a good one. This is a company that has been in Rancho Cucamonga for 40 years, and they're not leaving there. They're gaining capacity here, and they said they would be here for another 40 years easily. Well, let me talk about this project a little bit. This is a really interesting one. If you look at the just to the right and above this project on the other side of Waterman, this is the same landowner. And you all may know who the largest landowner in the city of San Bernardino is. It's the city of Riverside. Scandalous, I know. But the city of Riverside put their water wells here years ago and then floated the water down in the Gage Canal so they could have water. Unfortunately, that doesn't do anything for the city of San Bernardino. So we approached the city of Riverside and what they call Riverside Public Utilities to say, look, you've got vacant land that's not generating anything for the city of San Bernardino, nor is it generating any economic benefit other than water for you. You have some old wells on there. How about we trade? We'll build you new wells, state-of-the-art wells. We drilled them. We built them. We leased the land from the city of Riverside, and that gives us the entitlement to build a new building. And on one side of the road, there's Amazon. On this side, hopefully, is this new medical supplier. But this is all on land that is leased. We're one of few companies that have kind of figured out how to lease land from government agencies, get a bank loan, put a tenant in, and explain it to the underwriters how that works. And this has been a very successful part of our business. And this is our third transaction with an entity to lease land. And we're always looking for others, but this is how you find land in a land-constrained market.
Is this, John, the second golf course you guys have torn down?
No comment. No. Well, the base golf course wasn't that good. And yes, this is the second golf course. So the only time we've ever had protests at one of our hearings was we had people with 9-irons coming after us when they closed the golf course and we built the Amazon facilities there. But you can hit a 9-iron a lot further on concrete than you can. Couldn't joke that in case there's any golfers here. But you know, there's what we used to say is this is going to employ so many more people than the golf course ever did. We need open space. By the way, we replaced the open space that we took out in terms of landscaping and trees. We had to replace the same number of trees that we took out into our project. So we think that we got the city got a good deal for that. And then the second golf course was the Waterman Golf Course. Everybody thought it was a public course. It was a private course. Tell you the economics. The city of Riverside, the owner of the land, was getting $180,000 a year in rent for that golf course. We're paying them over $1 million a year for the rent on that former golf course for the rights to build a building. So ground leases for us, kind of that win-win-win mythical unicorn where you find everybody's winning except the golfers, I guess. But you know, if you talk to Shandon Hills and some of the other courses here, they're kind of grateful because their play is up. So two sides to it, and no matter how thin you slice it, I guess. But that project should be open this summer, and we'll be working on putting the tenant in there after that. There's another picture of the roof going on here, and that's fairly recent. So a couple of others here. I think we have a laser on here, right? There we go. I don't know if you can see this on your screen, but we've got a couple of new projects going on. So right in here is where we should announce a small industrial building. It's about 170,000 square feet. It's on private land. It's off the base. and we should be signing a 10-year lease there with a Fortune 50 company that you'll really like. Mike Burrows will especially really like it on the airport because they use the airport quite a bit. The other one is over here. So all of this land in here, we assemble. This is about, I don't know, 60 houses that we bought, tore down, and built an industrial park in here we call Gateway South. And we'll start a small building over here. The city has granted us the permits and entitlements there. That's about 130,000 square feet. So I told you we're into the smaller buildings. The Fortune 50 companies here. And then another one I'm going to talk about here that Mike may have mentioned to you, and that is what we call Northgate 2 next to Mattel. So when the base closed, the Air Force and the federal government by law had to say who wants free land to public agencies. And there was two that said, yes, we would like free land or free facilities. One was the base gym, which went to the city of San Bernardino. And then the other was the base church, which went to a nonprofit. And the problem with doing that, and we've talked to the Chief of Staff of the Air Force in the past. I've briefed other bases on what to do, what not to do on base closures. Sounds a little self-serving, but you need to bring in a master developer first because now you're having to move tenants and move people out and unwind deed restrictions. So this parcel here, I think I've got the next one. Next slide shows it a little bit better. This slide here shows the base gym. The IVDA controls this parcel here and this parcel here. You have the church here, and you've got the base gym here. So all the land around it can't be developed. So there's probably another $60 to $100 million waiting to be spent there on that property that can't be done until those two parcels relocate. So you say, well, Hillwood, you've got money, go buy those. Well, when the base closed and it went to the public agencies, to the city, and to the nonprofit, there's deed restrictions that say, well, you can't use that for anything but recreation, or you can't use that for anything other than a church. So how do you unwind that? With a lot of lawyers, a lot of patience, and good staff at the IVDA. We're getting closer, but I know I've been working on this for almost 10 years, and Mike's been working on it for even longer. It's not easy. So we'd appreciate your support. If you can put that together, again, that would be close to about 60 to 80, maybe $100 million of new investment here. If we can't do that, we'll build some smaller buildings up here or in here, but then you're having to drive by a church or a gym where people are playing. By the way, the gym has asbestos, lead-based paint, roof's not doing well, pool's not working. It needs to be torn down. But we'll get through all that eventually, and we'll be able to put that land into production. This is the Fortune 50 company's building. It's just a little bit smaller, but this is all on land that we've bought over the years. And I think we've owned this land for 10 years, just waiting for the right tenant to come along. And a couple houses to the tenants ready to take our offer to move out. And then the one on Lena Road next to, across the street from Coles and Kohler over there. It's also backs up to the Norton Space Academy, I think, there too, who is in discussions to move also, which could free up some more land there as well. So what you have here is kind of a shot down the valley of this project, and it's, I get asked all the time to speak at industry conferences, and I know Mike does too in terms of how do you do base redevelopment. But this has been a wild success. I can't think of any other BRAC 1988 airports to have this much success, with maybe one exception, Austin Bergstrom in Austin. But they converted it into they moved the passenger airport out there from Austin. So it gave it a lot of legs there. But they don't have the number of jobs you have here. They don't have, Amazon's and Data Brothers headquarters on there. They have airlines landing there. But I know we'll have airlines here eventually, and in addition to UPS and FedEx, and we'll keep chugging away as we keep the airport vital and an important asset for the community. I think, subject to your questions, that may include. One more metric here. We have 26 associates at Hillwood that live out here. All but 4 are Inland Empire residents. A couple of people have skated over to Orange County, but they all live here. They work here. They shop here. We moved our office from Hospitality Lane next to Flesh because I got tired of explaining that to my boss, and moved to Ontario next to the arena because it's easier to jump on an airplane there today, maybe not in the future. But it's if San Bernardino gets commercial flights. But right now, that's the place for us to be. We also have quite a few of our construction team live in Ontario, Rancho Cucamonga, San Bernardino, Redlands. Our head of our construction team lives in Redlands, Lake Arrowhead. We've got people all over the county and the region. That's 26 out here. We've got probably 10 back in Dallas that are direct reports to me, but in support of like in accounting and legal and other jobs. But this has been a big team. We started with one, and the nice thing about this is I have 2 people who've been working with me out here for 16 years. So it's been great to get some continuity here, and continue to reinvest in the community. I think that's it.
Thank you very much. Any comments, concerns?
Questions. Is Hillwood or California Alliance have any plans to invest in any nonprofits or community programs here in the local area?
You bet. So we've done, I think over the years, over $100,000 to different community organizations. 2 big chunks went to the police department after the shooting, the terrorist attack. We've been a longtime big supporter of Loma Linda University Children's Hospital. I was on the board there for 14 years. Private schools, big recipient because we've, especially in Redlands, my son went there, and I was on the board there for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Previous mayor's projects here in San Bernardino, we've had Operation Phoenix. We were the prime donor for that to get job training downtown. Those are the ones that come to mind off the top of my head. We've volunteered for years at a couple of the nonprofits here in town that we've built big relationships with. Our tenants are very involved, specifically Amazon, on the local charities and outreach too. So they need those because their employees think it's important too.
And there's also plans to continue that sort of assistance into the future?
Absolutely. Okay. We feel like since we've been here so long, we're part of the community, mm-hmm. And we just think it's the right thing to do.
Okay. Thank you. John, it's amazing how time flies. I still remember, in fact, I think you and I met in the parking lot of that gym that we're hopefully someday trying to build something on, and it was September 11, 2008. And I remember Mike introducing me to you, and I had no idea who Hillwood was or what you were doing. And of course, soon after that, the recession hit, and there was a lot of vacant land. There was a lot of uncertainty as to where things were going to go. And it's amazing how much has transpired in the years. And then I remember when your boss flew into town, Rossborough Jr., and then when he saw the airport, which you guys had chosen not to be a part of at the time, you mostly dealt with IVDA stuff, he was amazed with what we had built, and you have actually showed of interest. Now, of course, everything comes around, and now you're more involved with the airport and some of the stuff that we're doing here. So there's, without a doubt, your involvement and Hillwood's participation just couldn't have made this place as successful as it is. Now we're dealing with the headaches of a lot of the revenue you're generating, Sacramento stealing from us, and we're having to fight to get it back, but I think we're going to prevail with that because it's very clear that a public-private partnership that we've developed, and if we put that money to good use in our community, it creates a lot of value. So thank you again, and thank you. Spessine?
Yeah, just one comment. I just want to thank you. I appreciate this this presentation. Norton Air Force Base is very special to me. I was born here, so that
I
dates
think
me
the
now.
hospital's torn down.
Oh, you tore it down, man.
You're not alone.
And also, you
Hang
know,
on.
my wedding reception was in this room. So,
Wow.
so Norton Air Force Base is very special to me. And I know we talk about the gym and we joke about the gym, but it's very special to the community. And if we can see maybe that some form of activity just like that someplace else around here, the city would really appreciate seeing something.
I'm
like
glad you said that because that is the only way we're going to be able to do it is to replace it, right? Or to
Right.
replace, trade it out, and I think that's probably the future of it. It's not a one-way street. It's got to work both ways.
So to the councilwoman's point, our San Bernardino members, you will see this, or may have seen it on prior, agendas under Galaxy Center, of course, is what we call it, and it's actually the deed restriction is held by, of all things, the National Park Service, which is kind of strange. That's who we've been really trying to work with, essentially relocate, transfer that covenant, and then allow the city to reap the benefits of the sale of the property for one, but to replicate a recreational area, hopefully very close by. So in a future meeting, I'll actually do a presentation on what the relocation plan looks like, and I think you're going to like it. I hope you will. But we may need some support letters, things like that, as around the corner. Our main issue is the main person in with the Department of Interior that has been working on this is no longer in that job, and they haven't replaced the position. So that leaves us a bit off the path.
So on my end, sorry,
Go ahead.
I get recognized?
Nah, you can speak at any time. No worries.
Oh, okay. Is there any talk of possibly opening up outlet shops, kind of like how we'd have in Cabazon and Riverside area? Since we have the warehouse, I think we would get some discounted.
There's only one right now, and that's on the corner of Mill and Tippecanoe. It's a conglomerate tool shop there where people can come in and buy tools. Mattel closed theirs, I think, this past year, but I don't know if there's any others that are slated right now. One thing that we have to be very careful of is the way that it's zoned right now. It doesn't allow for commercial activity or retail. But what has been happening is across the street from the project, you're starting to see retail go in, gas stations, and other things that can service the workforce here. We need more. Most people drive down to Hospitality Lane, to get food at lunch, but we need more.
On that note, it's kind of interesting because when John and I first met in 2009, I had done some research on them, and their Hillwood division had invested in some retail actually in Maui, and I did research on it, and I was trying to talk him into building something similar in Loma Linda. We had enough land at the time. We were trying to duplicate what Rancho Cucamonga was doing with their Victoria Gardens, but looks like you guys have done a better job in warehousing at this point. So,
one thing to your point that you mentioned before about our boss coming out here, my boss coming out here. So Ross Perot Jr. is our chairman. He approves every deal. He says I can build anything you want and do anything I want until I need money. Well, he has all the money, so I have to go ask him for it. So he approves every deal. He comes out here once a year, at least once a year. He was out here 3 times last year. But he loves the airport, loves the FBO. FBO is, and we run an FBO in Texas. This one is better, if you can believe that, than the one that we built as a front door to our project there. So you've got something here, and you mentioned the airport. We're a big believer in the airport. For the first 4 years of our contract, we were paying, I don't know, a couple $100,000 or $100,000 a year just to maintain control of the airport to figure out what it could be. We went out and found FedEx to fly in charter into this base to test out the airport. They didn't like it very much until you all could make the improvements to the runway, to the landing system, and now they're here. We think that the airport kind of hitting its stride. I give the speech all the time in the industry about it's the golden age of aviation. You've got something here, and it's about to get bigger. And that's why we went ahead and entitled that and permitted that site on the airport. We think that great things are about to happen on the airport. We just need to be ready. And so Mike convinced me 3 years ago to start paying some money again to entitle our position on the airport, and that's how we ended up there. But we think that my boss will be out here very soon, hopefully for a groundbreaking.
To the councilwoman's question, the area to the north of the airport, that specific plan area, has a very flexible zoning that we're proposing to complement. We got it close.
Very good.
Thanks
Well,
as well.
thank you, John, and thank you for your time. And that's it. Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Okay, we'll move on to our next item. I know we skipped over 7, so now we'll go back to 7. I'm not clear. Is this an actual report on our?
There are
audit?
times when Alka and I, would do think it's important to bring in a professional to explain some things. And as you know, we do contract with the firm ED & Payne as our independent auditors. And some of you may be seen some interesting mail from Mr. Garay and Alka. Mr. Lewin, a little over a year and a half ago, I guess it was, we had an IRS audit. Everybody gets them. We do from time to time. And it dealt with our payroll. As you know, we have a fairly lean but concise HR structure here, and they audited that. Didn't find any issues, obviously, with paying people that don't exist and things like that, thankfully. But they came up with an interesting finding in that they essentially requested that going forward, or I wouldn't call it a request, they indicated and directed that for those wonderful, director fee stipends that you all work very, very hard for, that we had to treat you on the purposes of taxes as employees, which would mean we'd have to do essentially deductions from the $150 stipend that you're getting for, your public service. And that didn't sit real well with me because back of a number of things, y'all are my bosses, and you're an employee. That's a really strange treatment. So we had to close out that review and settle with IRS. And then we were talking with our auditors towards the tail end of last year, and Frank, brought in, had some experience in this, has recently come up with essentially a path that we could prevent going down that road. And I'd like Frank just to give you an update on where we are. So if you would come forward, Frank, thank you very, very much, and kind of explain in layperson's terms what we're working on here.
From a private sector standpoint, that would board members or subcontract or income stipend reported on a 1099 as opposed to the question issue comes down to governmental public official. IRS is taking the position that you are employee period. So their argument was, and that's where we kind of see a little bit of a light opening. It's by no means a slam dunk, but we do light possibly there that turn that around and have you back on a 1099 if that's what we'd like to have done. So we're willing to take this on as a test case. If you're interested, no charge. Reverse. Like I said, we're light in the tunnel with regards to it, and hopefully get that converted.
So if I understand you correctly, that applies to 2019 tax year because with 2018 we got a 1099.
Yeah. Typically, once you have an audit, they want you to convert over for that year moving forward. Obviously, for the audit, 17, 16.
16?
But we've been getting 1099 cents.
Right. That's been
Yeah,
our,
yeah.
been our practice.
So we haven't changed anything. So
Well,
are we changing anything moving forward, or?
That's a possibility. Maybe we won't.
Okay.
That audit was last October, so 1099 for 20 moving forward 2019. That's possible. That may change.
Okay. So you're giving us a
we-
heads up that this is
Yeah,
an
well,
issue that
I
we
mean-
haven't quite clarified yet.
Yeah, we're in tax season, so I wanted to make sure you got
Okay.
the nuts and bolts of this thing and what our position's going to be. We're in essence, moving forward under protest, if you will, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, ideally, IRS would have liked to convert it over to a W 20.
Well, I think that's going to be very simple to fix. We double the salary, and then you can take all taxes you need. All right.
So what is
The will of the board, yes.
so I'm not exactly sure what the strategy or the approach is going to be. What is the approach that you are intending to pursue?
Well, the approach
order-
we're going to take is that they are incorrect in determining that the board members are employees of subcontract with 1099. So we're going to try, whatever angle we can, to argue the issue. Prevail, great. Once again, willing to take this on as a test.
Yeah, and we have polled other joint powers authorities. I mean, several of you are on many of our comps, like SBCA and Omnitrans and other entities, and we're kind of a unique case. So I just wanted to make sure you were fully briefed. Frank and we're going to prepare a letter of communication to the IRS. They're going to open that dialogue. Should you want to, and I think it's worth proceeding. And then we'll keep you updated. If you have questions along the way, of course, legal counsel are available at any point as well.
Yeah, it makes a valid point. You are on it, historically gotten potentially IRS has been knocking on the door. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not down the road, but more likely at some point. Kind of nip it in the bud right at this level. That'll stay later on.
Mr. Hagman, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I pretty much guarantee I'm on more boards and commissions than anybody else on this board right now, and my stipends end up quite a bit. It drives my CPA crazy every year because I'm getting basically about income value benefit taken out. He's always claimed it could be looked at as a expense reimbursement, and now with the new laws in effect, the things we used to write off, our car allowance, the gas, the mileage, can't do that anymore. So he's suggesting that we would take a look at, even from the county's perspective, those benefits we get that's clumped in with our pay, pulled off and reimbursed as an expense account of some sort. So I just thought I'd drop that out there.
No, thanks.
Trying to be recreative, not just for the ruling that you have, but also the fact that you can't write off those expenses anymore that you used to get the income for.
No, you make a really valid point there. 'Cause, as a 1099, you can write off whatever expenses for a board member. Once you get the W-2, you're an employee, and that expense for federal purposes is gone. So,
Well, a lot of things I used to, I drive a lot, drive constantly, but the mileage and other things I used to be able to take off are not there anymore. Even I did the long form and have multiple businesses and stuff, so it's a pretty complicated thing. But I was off like 20,000 expenses this year. That was last year. So I just did this last weekend, so he's suggesting I should care to kind of look into it in the county as well. But
That's helpful. And if any of you guys come across any other examples like that, please send them our way. We've had this payroll system and the structure for forever. I think a few years ago, we did look at the actual comp on it, and updated that a little bit with the times and with our other agencies out there. But we've never come across this, and it's not the first time. that we've been there, but it was a bit of a surprise to us. So again, sorry for the long explanation, but it does affect you. I want to make sure you're up to speed.
Thank you.
I think we got your marching orders. So, your mission is to accept it. Thank you, sir.
All righty, very good. We'll move on to item number 9, approve an amendment to the professional service agreement with Kimberly Horn Associates, in the amount not to exceed $64,000 to complete a traffic study for the airport gateway specific plan. And that's got Mr. Burrows.
So I guess I'm on a specific plan kick today. So what this item deals with is an adjustment to the original contract with Kimberly Horn. They are our traffic expert on what's called the Airport Gateway Specific Plan. This is the 600 acres north of the airport. And as I've reported on before, we would have essentially been tail end of last year in a position to move forward with the full plan. Since that time, a few projects have come up, one of which is actually on our airport, which added some new traffic data to the regional mix. And we have to actually look at the time we put the environmental document out for the specific plan, that we have the most current cumulative traffic data so that it is up to the times. So in addition, City of San Bernardino, City of Highland, Public Works folks had asked us to look at a couple more intersections. And that's what is part of the scope here with Kimberly Horn. So we do expect this will be the last run of it, and hope to have that EIR in a fashion to present to you all to release later this summer. Happy to answer any other questions.
Move it, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
Thank you. So I hear a motion and a second. And seeing no comments or opposition, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item number 10, our last item for the evening, and it's the brief report on our action plan. Mr. Burrows.
Okay, so for our new board members, one of the things that I've done for a number of years now is summarize kind of where we're at in accomplishing the objectives that we set forth in your strategic plan. You know, we put these down in more granular fashion so we can keep track of priorities and how we're doing. So as of March, I owed you an update, not just on the Northgate development, but we amped that up a little bit so Mr. Magnus could give you the full brief. Had the data updated. We've just completed that. And next month, we do want to talk a little bit more about the specific plan and some of the other partnerships that we've been working on. So that'll be before you at that meeting. And then going into May, that's our target to talk a little bit more about the environmental side of the specific plan. So particularly for the City of San Bernardino members, City of Highland, those jurisdictions with their land use authorities will be the entities that will ultimately adopt the specific plan. And so I want to make sure that you as board members have the latest information. And in June, I don't know, there's this little thing called a budget that the ALCA thinks we should probably do every year. So I think we'll have that before you there. That concludes my report.
And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but our finance committee meets around May prior to the. Okay.
May.
So just note for our new vice chair that he's part of our finance committee. Yep. Hopefully, when Josie comes back, she'll be made aware of it. So.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Yep. And we'll start polling probably early April, so you can manage it.
Very good. We'll go ahead and see if there are any public comments for our open session. Seeing none. Or any board member comments? This opportunity to promote your respective city or county or any other events for all of the 5 people that may be watching. Go ahead.
I just want to, congratulate the students here. I work for the Workforce Development Department, and I know all you guys came through the office. I'm just excited for you guys, to be able to gain some work experience before you graduate. Keep your heads up. You guys look like very positive people. You guys spoke very well. I'm proud and enjoy, and also enjoy it, because when you go to college, things will change you. You'll be an adult then. But congratulations.
Yes, also for the interns, I sit on the SCAG Regional Council, and we're coming through the process of awarding scholarships, a $4,000 scholarship. And if these interns are interested in staying in the logistics goods movement thing, go to the SCAG website. The application is there. Submit. Good luck to you.
No, that's great. Okay.
And since I guess Mrs. Barra joined us, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself briefly to some of us who may not know you?
My life story.
Now you can do it in less than 30 seconds. Well, basically just kind of where you're from and that's about it.
Well, I was born and raised in the city of Santa Ana, California, and I moved to San Bernardino 5 years ago as a first-time homeowner. And I've been heavily involved in the community with Neighborhood Watch, neighborhood associations. I've been city commissioner twice before, running for second ward in the city of San Bernardino.
Congratulations.
Thank
and
you.
you just recently won. Very good. And Mr. Hagman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, it's kind of interesting. Workforce Investment Board, that was one of my first commissions a long time ago, I don't know, like 18, 20 years ago. But I was on that for 7 years, ran for city council, was on Parker Rec, one city council, mayor, went to the state legislature for 6 years, and now I'm starting my 5th year as county supervisor.
Very good. And with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn our meeting, and we will see you all on April the 10th. Thank you.
Thank you.